Hi guys, this is Damian Morris from DMD Aquascapes, and today we're going to be rescaping my 50-gallon aquarium. The dimensions are 40 inches long and then it's 18 inches tall by 18 inches wide. I'm currently creating a sand border around the front and the sides of the aquarium because we're going to dirt this tank as we want to plant it heavily. Now, commercially available aqua soils aren't readily available here on island because the shipping cost and the small numbers of persons who are actually very interested in the hobby like myself, it really doesn't make sense for pet shops, local pet shops, to carry them. So we want to provide the best substrate layer for our plants to do well. So in that case, what we're going to do is we're going to come with a DIY solution of dirt in the tank, and we're going to discuss the different components used as we get to them during the planting phase, during the substrate setup phase. Here you see me fiddling with some light diffuser. Now this isn't necessary, but based on the substrate mix that I'm going to be creating, as well as some of the hardscape, which includes some very dense, heavy rocks, I want to ensure that there are no pressure points pressing on the bottom panel of the aquarium. By now some of you are probably wondering, why did he leave that water in the bottom of the tank? I really tried to get it out and I just couldn't. Given the location and the fact that I'm doing this by myself, and it's probably about midnight at this point, I really didn't want to risk trying to lean the tank and possibly break it. So I decided, well, I guess I'm gonna have to build this sand border with it in. It made the process so much longer, so much harder, but nonetheless, the tank survived and so did I. I finally finished the sand border, and now I'm starting to build a substrate layer. In my hand is a slow release pellet fertilizer that is commonly used by us here in Barbados. It's an Osmocote 1414 NPK based fertilizer, and I am trying to spread out an even layer all across the bottom of the tank. And this is very important at this stage because next up is going to be some clay pellets, right? Now, most of the aqua soils used are heavily clay based. Most of them are pelletized clay soils. So what I'm trying to do is mimic the aqua soils by using these clay pellets. They have extremely high CEC ratios, so I'm putting down a base layer of fertilizer first to charge the clay pellets. What do I mean when I say charging the clay pellets? No, the clay pellets have an extremely high CEC ratio. CEC stands for cation exchange capacity. In layman's terms, it just means that these clay pellets have the ability to draw in nutrients and store them within the pellet itself. It is a property that is seen in almost all clay items, or I should say all clay substrates really, which is why the commercially available aqua soils are based on pelletized clay soils. That said, if we don't charge the clay pellets, what can actually happen is that the nutrients could be drawn out of the water column into the substrate, which is not necessarily the best for a planted tank. So what we're trying to do is to provide nutrients to the clay pellets to fill them up, and then have those nutrients be available for the plant roots once they get down to this layer. Another reason for using the clay pebbles in this manner is for the longevity of the substrate. Now, changing the flora, fauna, and the hardscape of a tank is quite easy and usually not a very painstaking process. However, changing the substrate in the dirty tank means tearing it right down, cleaning and restarting, as well as most likely throwing away all of the previously used substrate. What I wanted to do is to create a substrate that I could have for a longer period of time. And by using the clay pebbles, it means that I could continue to charge the substrate with additional nutrients over time, using either the commercially available root tabs, or I could make my own root tabs using Osmocote and some other chemicals to continue to recharge the substrate for optimal plant growth. My final reason for using the clay pebbles in this manner is because I wanted to create an area under the substrate where there's still water flow and oxygen exchange. This would help to increase the overall health of my plants, and that is what I'm aiming for: optimal plant growth in order to reduce or remove as much algae from the system as possible. Here you can see me adding the second layer to the substrate. It's a heavy clay soil. It's about 70% clay and about 30% organic matter. It was supplied to me by a good friend, Ryan. He's another member of the Barbados Aquarius and Aquascaping Society, and he had recently stockpiled a bit of this and was using it in his own setup, which I may feature on the channel at a later date. Now, this soil came from about 3 or 4 feet under the earth, and it would never have been touched, nothing would have been growing in it. So it's going to be heavily nutrient dense. So I'm not really using a lot of it. As you can see, I am removing the bigger particles and putting them back in the bucket so that I can break them up and add them later as at a finer grade. One of the things I learned is that I really should have gone through and sifted this clay soil out beforehand, because there were a lot more bigger particles than I would have appreciated. So it meant that it took me another 45 minutes to then take those and break them down to a manageable size. It's at this point that the ½ inch of water I had earlier bemoaned for making building of the sand border extremely difficult came into play in a useful way. It started to soften up the clay and make some of the harder pieces that I had just given up hope on breaking up. It allowed those to soften up and be more easily spread across the clay pebble layer for a more even distribution. So I guess it was there for a reason. And look, we are back again using the Osmocote slow release fertilizer. You're probably asking yourself 2 questions. One is, didn't we use the slow release fertilizer already? And 2, it looks like that's a lot of fertilizer that's being added. And you would be right. Yes, we did add the Osmocote before, but we added it right to the bottom with the specific intention of charging the clay pebble layer. We are adding it again on top because we also need to charge the clay soil layer, as well as provide essential nutrients for the plants to use as soon as they're planted. Remember, plants don't really like to be moved around. They like to be settled. So what we want to do is create an environment for them to move into that is extremely conducive to good, optimal plant growth. And last but not least, we are adding the cap to the dirted substrate layer. The cap is going to be 1.5 to 2.5 inches on top of the substrate, so that we don't have a situation where substrate can easily leak into the water column and foliate and create algae blooms and have cloudy water, etc., etc. point, it's time to create the hardscape. I've decided to time lapse this portion of the video because of the angle of the camera and you really can't see all of what I'm doing. Suffice it to say that I had previously built the hardscape before outside in my makeshift dojo, but when I brought it inside it didn't quite work back exactly as I imagined it to, so I made some tweaks here and there. Additionally, I would have used some super glue and filter floss in order to secure a few pieces of wood and so on that were not part of the original piece, and to secure the wood to one or two pieces of hardscape to ensure that it wouldn't float. Although I don't think it was necessary because the wood was quite heavy and quite dense. It's at this point where I want to say thank you guys for watching, and I hope you stay tuned for part 2 where we go collect the plants and plant the tank. Remember to like and subscribe, and thank you guys for watching.